What's going on, you guys? Riley here. Today we are taking a look at a 2017 Cadillac ATS-V. This is a car that I almost bought. However, I almost bought the sedan version of this car, whereas this one is the coupe version, so you got two doors. And yeah, we have this car for the afternoon, so I figured let's take an in-depth look at it and see what the ATS-V is all about. So before we hop in the car and take it for a driving portion, go over the interior and talk about some of the performance specs on this car, let's go ahead and do a quick walk around. So the ATS-V has been out for a few years now. I believe it came out in like 2015-ish. And honestly, when it first came out with its big brother, the CTSV, and I'd always said to myself, if I was gonna pick one, I would get the ATS-V, mainly due to the fact of it being $20,000 to $40,000 cheaper, and I've just overall really liked the styling on this car. So this one does have a appearance package called the Carbon Black package, so you get some carbon fiber bits, it has Recaro seats in the inside, and some little things here and there. But overall, extremely nice car. You have 6-piston Brembo brakes on the front, as you can see peeking through right there, and then 4-piston Brembos there in the rear. It's on some 255 width Michelin Pilot Super Sports in the front and 275 width Michelins in the rear. And this car is based off of the Alpha chassis, which is the same chassis that the 6th gen Camaro is based off of, which is a car that I have owned and I absolutely loved owning. Even down here on the rear valence, you have a nice carbon fiber diffuser for exhaust tips and a Mustang looking reverse light there at the very bottom. And one complaint that some people have about the ATS-V is that it has a small trunk, and this one is pretty filled up right now. However, it does the job. I don't really have a problem with it. It goes in there pretty deep, and up here at the very front opening, it's pretty wide, a lot bigger than a Camaro trunk, so I really don't have any complaints with that. And then just finishing up, walking around on the other side, once again, just a really good looking car. Looks super sinister here in black. It kind of looks like a Batmobile. Part of that carbon black package I was talking about earlier gives you black chrome on the grille, so it's not chrome, it's not like a gloss black, it's a black chrome, which is kind of interesting. But overall, like I said, looks really good, especially, you know, just going down the road. If it's one of those cars, you don't really notice it at first, but then when you actually do, you're like, hey, that's pretty cool. Now, under the hood of the Cadillac ATS-V, it's packing a 3.6 liter twin turbo V6 engine that's good for 464 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque. Now, that's good enough for 0 to 60 times of about 3.8 seconds and the quarter-mile time of around 12 seconds. So by no means is this going to be the fastest car on the road. It's definitely a lot slower than its big brother, the CTSV. However, that's still pretty darn good, especially for a more daily-friendly daily driver that gets a lot better fuel mileage. I mean, it's a pretty quick car, so I'm really excited to take a drive with this thing and see what it's all about. Now, the base price of a brand new ATS-V is about $60,000 on the used market. However, you can find them anywhere from 40 to 50, kind of depending on miles and options. This one is pretty much every option possible except for a sunroof. So we'll take a look on the inside and I'll show you some of the cool features. So this one is a 8-speed automatic. Kind of wish it was a 6-speed. I think that'd be pretty fun in this car, but the 8-speed is a perfect setup for a nice daily driver. But opening the door, you're greeted to a bunch of Alcantara suede material and carbon fiber that pretty much starts on the door here and goes all the way through the entire middle of that dash and carries all the way around. So pretty cool. Now, this one does have the optional Recaro seats, which really hug you in nice and tight. They're a little bit of a pain to get out of. Pretty similar to the seats in the 1LE Camaro that I had previously. But overall, a pretty simple interior. We'll get into the little infotainment system here in a second. I'm not a huge fan of that, but overall pretty eye-pleasing just to look at. And then the back seat back here, it's not the biggest. However, you can definitely fit people back here. It's definitely much bigger than a Camaro back seat, so that's a huge plus. Like I said, I wish this was a sedan because I'd be curious to see how big the back seat in the sedan is, but for now this will have to do. So let's go ahead and hop inside and we'll take a look at some of the infotainment system as we turn the car on. So the gauges in this car are pretty simple. There's 3 different little menus there at the bottom that you can control to your liking. So I've got it set to fuel range there on the bottom left, if it'll focus. Fuel range on the bottom left, your speedometer there in the bottom middle, and then I have it set on engine boost there on the bottom right. But you can basically put whatever you want there, whether it's air pressure or temperatures, anything fuel economy related. And speaking of fuel economy, this thing's rated at 16 city, 23 highway, so that's pretty decent for a daily driver. I guarantee you that's so much much better than the CTSV, even though that would be probably a little bit more fun. But when I was playing around with the menus earlier, this car has about 7,000 miles on it, and the average fuel economy has been 21 miles per gallon. So that's pretty good for a daily just to cruise around in that still has some good power. Steering wheel, pretty simple design there with the buttons. I mean, you got radio controls there on the right, and then like cruise control options there on the left. Yep, there we go. And then of course it's wrapped in like an Alcantara suede material with nice grips up here at 9 and 3. So now let's move on to a part of the car that I don't like so much, and that would be Cadillac's Q system, which is their infotainment system. It's okay. I think they overcomplicated some things that don't really need to be. For example, like the volume in this car. Instead of it being like a button, so the volume, you know, should go up or down, you have to actually put your finger right here and drag it. And it like doesn't register really well. Like, what? Why is it not going up? Come on. There we go. See, it's a bit of a pain. And not only is it a pain, it also leaves smudges and smearing all over this little screen. So cleaning that would be a pain, and for somebody that gets really annoyed by smudges and stuff, this is probably not the car for me. Same thing goes for the air conditioning. You have to tap these things, and they're not the most responsive. They're okay. They'll get the job done, but like I said, not really my favorite thing. And then you got a home, oh, yep, there. You got a home button over there, so it's a pretty standard radio screen. I don't like this section right here. In fact, I don't like it so much. I'm just gonna get rid of it and move it up out of the way to where I can look at my nice little storage compartment with a USB plug and a wireless charger there. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, like I said, not a huge fan. Okay, really? There we go. You got a little 12-volt outlet down there with a little storage compartment, so pretty standard stuff. And then of course the gear shifter here wrapped in suede Alcantara, and then your mode selector down here. So if we move over here and I hit the buttons for that, you can go to snow and ice, track, sport, and tour. So we'll play with those on the driving portion, but that is your quick overview of the ATS-V interior. And yeah, let's go ahead and take her for a drive. All right, now for the fun part. Let's go ahead and take this thing out for a drive. So the key fob on this car, actually pretty cool. So it's like wrapped in like a rubberized coating material, and I don't know, I like it for some reason. So that's pretty nice, but yeah, just living that 8-speed automatic life, the same one from the SS Camaro, which is known to be a great 8-speed auto. And we're gonna leave everything kind of in its normal and like touring mode settings to begin with, and go from there. So a few things that stand out to me to begin with is, number one, this car does have a heads-up display, which is one of my favorite features on any car. I'm so glad that GM does that so much. So heads-up display is pretty cool. And thing number two, this has magnetic ride control. So the ride is really comfortable in its comfortable setting, and it's just like a good cruiser. And I'm sure later when we play with the settings and stiffen things up, then it will be a lot more sporty feeling. I see this car as being more of just like a quick, fun daily driver. I don't see this really being too much of a sports car, even though that's kind of where its roots are. I mean, it's a V car. It has set down really good lap times at places, and like the car can definitely handle itself on a track. I just personally see it more of like, this is a great daily driver. All right, we're actually gonna go ahead and throw it into sport mode right now, since we have a good opportunity to get on it a little bit. So let's pull out onto this road in sport mode and floor it. Okay. Oh shoot, it actually loses traction. Okay, that's actually really fast. Wow. I kind of wasn't expecting that. This thing hauls ass. Damn. I mean, for a V6, it actually doesn't sound too bad either. That was one of the things that kind of held me back from buying it. I was like, I don't know if I'd like listening to a V6 every day, because all I've owned is V8s in the past. I know, right? Super American. But my goodness, this thing seriously has some get up and go to it. I like it. I really like it. It's definitely not as fast as a CTSV. I've driven that once before for like 10 minutes, so I got to Florida a couple times, and it was a lot of fun. But this is more of like a controlled fun. You can actually use this power. It's usable power. The CTSV, you gotta really have a wide open road to really use that power. This is perfect. Now, when I drove the CTSV before, I used the paddle shifters a couple times, and I did not like them at all. They felt very delayed. So I'm hoping these will be better, but let's find out. So we're gonna shift down, paddle shifters, first gear, 20 roll. Hey, that's a lot better. There's a little bit of a delay there, but it's not, to me, as bad as the CTSV was. Maybe I just had a bad one. I think that car had tire shine on the tires, so maybe that was causing some interference with traction control or something. But to me, the paddle shifters in this car are pretty good. I still think that the 8-speed from Dodge is better, the ZF Auto. But I'd say this is pretty close to that. All right, so we're gonna try out those paddle shifters one more time, and I'm gonna pay attention to how much boost we make. 13 PSI. This thing moves out. I'm impressed. This is kind of surprising. I mean, that's pretty good. I believe this car also has a thing that kind of like pumps in fake engine sound, which is kind of like, why? But it doesn't sound too bad for being a V6, and it kind of almost has like a GTR tone to it. I mean, it's a 3.6 liter twin turbo V6, kind of similar. And of course, everybody knows how well the Alpha chassis is on the 6th gen Camaros, and this car is no exception. Going through corners, I mean, it just handles extremely flat, even for what is a relatively tall looking car. When you stare at it, you're like, it's kind of big, but it really does a nice job of keeping itself planted to the ground and just really confidence inspiring. It's also nice to have a good set of tires on this car. That's really helpful. But this car kind of does everything. It's a good daily, it gets decent gas mileage, it's quick, it handles good. I mean, I do think the starting price on this car is a little bit on the high side. So this one, with a bunch of options, the owner said it's probably closer to like $75,000, which is kind of a lot, which is why I said on the used market, these things are a bargain, being for around, $45,000, $50,000, depending on options and stuff. So if you're gonna buy one of these, I personally would get a used one. This one, like I said, had 6,000 miles on it. Get a lightly used one owner car and save $20,000, $30,000, do that. If you're looking to buy one new, man, that would be really tough for me to shell out $70,000 for this car. It's a great car, don't get me wrong, but 70 grand, there's a lot of competition in that price range that is also extremely good. I mean, you could buy like probably a lightly optioned Z06 for that price. I mean, or a Camaro ZL1 for that price. So to talk about some negatives for this car, I mean, of course, it does not have the sound of a V8, and it never will. And so that's kind of something that you miss out on a little bit. And the little Q system, whatever, it's really not even the Q system, it's more just like the climate controls and the volume and stuff. I don't like that at all. They overcomplicated something that all it needed to be was just a couple buttons, and they made it like this touch thing where you just get smudges all over the place, and they're not really responsive. They don't work that great. I don't like that. But the visibility is great. There's a little bit of a blind spot over here, but you have blind spot monitoring system in here, and I think in the sedan it probably wouldn't be as bad. The gauge cluster does not look nearly as nice as a CTSV gauge cluster does. I mean, it's okay and it's fine. You can customize 3 different things with it, but it's not what you would really expect for a car that brand new costs $70,000. Once again, this is a quick daily driver. This is not a race car, even though when you put your foot down into it, I mean, it is pretty darn quick, and it's actually pretty impressive, damn. It's still like not a race car though, and I don't know, adding Recaros to your daily driver just kind of seems unnecessary. But it is pretty darn quick. It gets up to speed really fast, wow. To me, this is like that perfect level of quickness where you can really use the power in this car. You can actually put your foot into it and get enjoyment out of that. It's not something like the ZR1 that I just reviewed where you put your foot down and you're all over the road and you can't put the power to the ground. This is actual usable power, and that's nice sometimes. It's super fun to drive those really fast cars. They'll scare the crap out of you, but at the same time, you kind of miss being able to really use the full potential of your car, and in a way kind of push the boundaries of it. In this car you can do that, whereas something like a ZR1, you really can't touch the boundaries of that car on public roadways because you would be in jail. So in conclusion, would I buy one of these? Hell yeah, I would definitely buy one of these. This has been an awesome driving experience. I really enjoy it, and this is also one of those cars that I've set pretty high expectations for. I mean, I made a bold statement saying I'd rather own one of these compared to a CTSV, but I really do think that holds true. As fun as the CTSV was that I drove, I didn't make a review on it obviously, but as fun as it was, I just didn't feel like it was super usable. Of course, if you have tons of money, go out and buy a CTSV, sure, enjoy your life. But this is just more suited for like the everyday person, everyday driver that just wants to have fun occasionally in their daily driver, the kind of one car that does a little bit of everything. I think this is pretty much perfect. But what a time to be alive, where American car manufacturers are making cars that are actually fun to drive, good quality, and just like they've stepped up their game so much from 10-15 years ago when you had stuff that was just like meh. And by no means do I think this thing is like super technologically advanced. I wouldn't consider this to be like ahead of its time. I think it's right on par with things, but just the way it does everything as a package, just as one, I think this is really, really nice. A lot of cars are good at doing one thing, whether that's going fast or being comfortable or handling well, but then they're lacking in power. This does everything, and that's what I love about it, and that is why I would totally recommend buying an ATS-V. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a like and a comment down below, and be on the lookout for some more fun reviews that I have coming up in the near future. So thank you guys for watching this video. I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy.